Welcome to Higher Ed Live, the live weekly web show about the world of higher education, where we're all about digital development and professional empowerment. You guys know it, but I'm your host, Seth Odell, and Higher Ed Live is sponsored, as always, by Integral, the creators of schools on Facebook. Check it out at integral.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We have a very big, exciting show. I'm really excited. We're talking about Studio by Purdue. It's a suite of applications that have been designed and implemented to change the way students learn in the classroom. I don't know if you guys know it or not, but Purdue is doing some very, very big things regarding technology in the classroom, and I'm very excited to talk about it tonight and be able to share exactly what they're doing and hear all about it right from the source. And that's why today's guest is very special. I want to introduce him. So welcome Kyle Bowen from Purdue University. You are the Director of Informatics, or I believe I pronounced that correctly. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, thanks for having me, Seth. Long-time listener, first-time guest.
Awesome. Very happy to hear that. I'm so excited to have you here. It's going to be a really exciting topic. We're going to hear from Kyle all about what they've been doing at Purdue, why we need to know about it, and that's the big thing for me here today, guys, because as technology is evolving, a lot of us are sitting around as institutions waiting for things to change, waiting for something to happen, and Purdue has not done that. They're the ones going out there and making things happen, taking risks, and some exciting things are coming up about it, and it's just really cool to see what's happening. So we're going to talk all about that, but you guys know we have a few things we got to whip through every week, and first, I just got to let you know, guys, big show coming up next week. I got to let you know it's really big. We got from the Chronicle of Higher Education, Josh Keller, good friend of mine, great guy's going to come on and share all sorts of PR tips on how to get your institution in the media. If you are in there, how to get better coverage. I mean, this guy knows it all and is just really, really great to come on. He's going to share a lot of tips. So that's coming up next week. So keep that in mind. As always, hashtag, guys, Higher Ed Live. We're going to fire some people up today. I want to hear your thoughts and your comments. And before we dive into the topic, you know we always have the weekly five stories from around the world that are worth reading, noting, thinking about, or at least starring and promising yourself you will go back to later at some point to look at. So let's go on with the first of the weekly five. I got to do it. Episode 1 of Student Affairs Live from my man Eric Stoller was last week. It was all about social media leadership and student affairs. He brought in the one and only Jellin, like Ed Cabellin, on the show. It was a really great show, and if you guys haven't seen this before, I just want you guys to know that, it's a new show. We just launched it last week. Higher Ed Live is now a full-fledged web network. We're growing, and Student Affairs Live is not just for student affairs professionals. I watched the show. I don't personally work in student affairs. Got a lot out of it, so just keep it in mind. Eric is out at NASPA this week traveling, doing some updates, and we're going to have an update from Ed, I think, coming from South by Southwest, so keep all that in mind. We're definitely keeping busy. Let's go for number 2. Really interesting story out of the FCC. There's a $9 million program that's going to give students wireless internet access at home, not just at school. And this is just one program in one isolated area, but it brings up something I wanted to mention tonight that we've talked before on the show about accessibility, but more so about accessibility to websites, making sure everyone has access to information. But the question I want to ask tonight is, do you guys think everyone has a right to access internet from home? Because my fear is, as we do talk about evolving technology in the classroom or within education, there are some students, especially students from a lower economic status, that may be left out, that they don't have access to internet at home or it's harder. So it's just an interesting question. It's an interesting problem. There's been a lot of information going on, a lot of different programs, federally funded programs, trying to figure out how we can have students have access to internet as more and more learning is involving technology that needs it to utilize it. So very interesting question. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. The third story going on is just, guys, you should know about this by now, but if you're on Facebook, Facebook has officially killed FBML, which is the coding language they use. You can kind of skin and do all sorts of different things to your Facebook fan page. It is no more. If you have FBML on your site, on your Facebook page, you're okay for now, but you can no longer use FBML for any sites going forward. And so if something breaks or changes on your site, it's going to be very difficult to fix it. So there are a lot of links out there. This is a link to a great one over at All Facebook, but Patrick Powers had a great article too. So do some homework now, guys. If you have FBML on your Facebook page, figure out what you're going to do fast, because the last thing you want to do is come in someday when some administrator goes to your Facebook fan page and something's broken, and they want you to fix it in 35 minutes or less. So go check it out now. I think you'll appreciate that. Number 4, this is actually probably I'm most excited about. Scavenger, location-based service. You guys think you know about it. We had Jeff from Scavenger on a couple weeks ago. They launched sort of not a side project, but a different venture within Scavenger called Level Up, and they're competing with essentially the daily deals. There's a lot of sites going on out there that offer daily deals. I'm sure you guys know all about them. And they have a new one called Level Up Using Scavenger, and it's very interesting. Essentially, you have your daily deal like you have with a lot of other sites where you get an offer, $15 for $30 worth of food. But it's a system scavenger setup where now you buy the first one, you get even more discount the second, discounted third. I'm not going to get all into it, but you can read the link. The reason I think it's worth noting is this is the next phase of these social media things that are going on right now, these different technologies right now. What's happened is we had the daily deals, right? But that doesn't really help anybody all that much. Daily deals is one-off. It's not sustainable. It doesn't give you true growth. It doesn't really make sense to me. I still don't get why it's being so hyped. But Level Up is something that's a lot more comprehensive, and if you look at it, it's a real win-win. It works for consumers, it works for businesses, and it works for the tech companies behind it. So I think it's just a really good example of having a more thought-out, established daily deal. Again, check it out. Read the article if you have any more information. And the last one is SocialCam. SocialCam is a new application launched by the guys at Justin TV. Also, kind of a side thing. Their name's not really around it, but Justin TV is behind it. They've been working on it for a while, and it is the new way to share video, they say. And it's just interesting. I don't know if you guys know Instagram or not. Instagram is a photo sharing application on the iPhone. It's pretty interesting. This is sort of the same thing with video. And the question is video something that can be easily and readily shared via a phone for people? And this essentially SocialCam, you can take a video, share it to Facebook, Twitter, all these things at once. And that's interesting. Not only for this, but because tonight we're going to be talking about an application that Purdue's done that utilizes video as well on phones. So it kind of ties in, and I'm just curious about the future of video on mobile phones. Is it something where you're going to take a video and wait till you get home, or can you do just like a TwitPic? Can you take a video and it's instantly everywhere at once? And if it is, how can we harness technology like that for our students and in the classroom? So that's a big thing we're going to talk about tonight. And that is the weekly five stories you should note, think about, star, or maybe come back to at some point in the near future. So you guys know what time it is then. It's the unsolicited shout out of the week, where I shout out anything for any reason just because I feel like it, because it's my show and that's what I get to do. This week's shout out is going out to the Red Cross, obviously a very serious subject. You guys, I'm sure, have been following everything going on in Japan with the earthquake, the tsunami. Very, very heart-wrenching videos and stories coming out of there. But you can donate $10 just by texting Red Cross to 90999. I'd advise all you guys to do it. I definitely think we should all try and do what little part we can. And again, I also think it's interesting, as more and more of these crisis situations are happening, we're realizing how quickly and easily people can help. We first saw this with Haiti, but I mean, when you can just text information instantly and donate money, I think it's very interesting that it's an example of technology being harnessed in a really interesting way to take the burden of donating or assisting a charity and eliminating it. It's very easy. It's literally typing in like 10 letters. I think we can all step up and do that. So that is the weekly five, the unsolicited shout out of the week, and we're going to dive right into today's topic. So Kyle, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really do appreciate having you here.
Oh, it's great. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So, as we get into talking about it, let's start at the very beginning. What is Studio by Purdue for folks that maybe haven't heard of it before? And can you just give us a quick breakdown about it?
Sure. So the studio is a collection of tools that we've developed here at Purdue. What we're trying to do is take advantage of technology as it advances. We're kind of seeing a convergence right now in terms of mobile and social and collaborative technology. So what can we do in terms of empowering students, enabling them to learn in new ways? At the same time, how can we enable our faculty to develop new pedagogy around this?
Wow, very cool. And I just think it's exciting that you guys are going ahead and are trying to tackle this incredibly loaded and big question for yourselves. I think, again, I said before, that a lot of schools are kind of sitting back and maybe not doing as much as they can. Can you talk to me a little bit about how Studio by Purdue came about? I mean, how did the dialogue happen on campus where it was decided that we want to enter this arena and we want to tackle it and try and see what we can do, rather than just, again, sitting back and seeing if, an outside tech company can design something that works for us?
Sure. So actually, I guess to walk that back a little bit, it wasn't necessarily started by a major institutional initiative. Universities tend to turn like huge cruise ships, and sometimes you have to be on the little speedy boats that get in front of them. So if you've ever played Harbor Master on your iPhone, something like that. So how can you be the little boat that gets in and out pretty quick? So we have a team here, and we identified an opportunity where we could develop classroom technology, use our existing skill sets. And we did that, and we put it into the classroom, and we had some positive gains from that, and so we've been building out from there.
Very cool, very cool. So guys, if you're watching, I'm just curious if you can throw out there, is your institution tackling technology in the classroom on any organized level? And don't be afraid to say no. I mean, that's okay. I haven't seen it at mine. I'm just curious because that's what I've seen a lot of times is that you have one or two professors or a couple students or someone that really is really passionate as a stakeholder, but bringing that all together, tying it up, and having an institutional voice, I think is really important, especially saying as an institution, here's what we have to offer you to the faculty and to the students, and just providing it to them as a resource that they get to utilize. So, guys, we're going to talk all about this, but before we go any farther, I just want to dive right into a couple of the services and the things that you guys offer from Studio by Purdue, because I want people to get a taste of the kind of work that you guys are doing. So the first one I want to talk about is, I think the one that came up first for you guys, it's called Hotseat. And can you just tell me a little bit about Hotseat, what it is, and maybe we'll give folks a taste of why Studio by Purdue is so freaking cool.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, Hotseat was born out of this idea of, how can we engage students in lecture in a dialogue. So we all know that students are bringing technology with them into the classroom. We've all got those students sitting in the back row of their class with their cell phone out. We can't be 100% sure what they're doing with it. Maybe they're taking notes. Maybe they're texting that cute girl in the next row. We're not quite sure, but what we do know is that they've brought the technology necessary into the classroom to engage that entire room in discussion. Go to any conference, you see a live back channel. So why can't we deliver that same back channel experience to the classroom? And so that's what we try to do with Hotseat. And really, what we tried to do was we've seen clickers as a technology, which is kind of the structured input. So what we wanted to make was the unclicker. So make it so that it couldn't be used for a quiz, or it couldn't be used for or taking attendance, something like that. So how it works simply is the faculty member initiates conversation in the classroom. Students use their mobile devices, their laptops. They can text message in. They can use Twitter or Facebook, and they can ask their questions. They can share their opinions. They can interact with the classroom in a number of different ways.
Wow, very cool. So how has the reaction been from folks in the classroom? What stories are you hearing back? What's the feedback?
Sure, this is good. So we've had in our initial pilots, what we saw was a 86% adoption by the students. So it was an entirely optional program. 86% adopted, which I was thrilled with. 86% probably didn't buy the textbook for that class. So we were thrilled to see those kinds of numbers coming in. And then as we did our qualitative research with that, we discovered that the students were feeling more engaged in the classroom. They felt like their opinions were being heard. They felt like they had a better connection with the other students around them and with their faculty member. These kinds of things. So we were really happy with the feedback that came back from that.
Very cool, and that's a really good point. I think you talk about engagement in the classroom. I think that's just so huge. Is reaching out to students, especially students that maybe are a little more passive, or it's harder for them to reach up or reach their hand up, say something. I think that's really great. I'm curious about one thing. How scalable is this? Is this a technology that could work in like a lecture style classroom, or is it better in a more intimate environment?
Oh no, we've seen it in all sizes. We've seen it in lectures as small as 15 to 30 kids. We've implemented it in classes up to 450 at one time. So really, the intention here was to provide a technology that scales. And part of it was, in these large lectures, for example, how can we provide that same kind of student engagement that you might get in a smaller classroom? Just give you one example in a personal finance class. It was 250, 300 kids in that lecture. The professor would typically see 5, maybe 6 questions during a class period. Now he sees on the order 120 to 140 questions per class period. So the students get the technology, they engage with it, they get what it's about, and the faculty members are getting what they want, which is better student engagement.
That's absolutely wonderful. I mean, I really can't applaud you guys enough that when it comes to these, especially these larger classrooms, how difficult engagement is. And it's something that I've found from my experience, unfortunately, many institutions have simply just said is not a problem we can tackle right now. There's just no way you can engage 500 students in a lecture with one professor and a couple TAs. And it's awesome that you guys have literally said, yes, there is a way to do it. And the part that I love is that the burden of the cost is not just on you guys. Yes, the cost is development, but students have the phones already. Like I said, it's not like you're bringing in new technology and attempting to get everyone to pick one up at the door and drop it back off and in there. I've seen that with clickers too, and I've done it before. And it works, that's okay.
Sure.
But the fact that you're utilizing a technology that is already in the pockets of your students and already in the classroom just seems to make sense.
That's a concept we call run what you brung.
I like that. Very nice. Now, I will say that, the Hotseat's not the only thing you guys have done. Obviously, you've done a suite of things, and I'd love just to give a little another taste for folks out there, the kind of stuff that you guys are doing. And actually, hold on. We got a question. This is a good one. So the question is, so how does the professor answer 150 questions? That's a really good thing. If you have all these students engaging and reaching out, how is it that one professor can still handle that kind of a workload? What's the reaction been on the faculty side?
Great question. So, and there are a number of different answers to it. So we have many different faculty. I think this current semester we have somewhere in the order of 8 to 20 faculty members using the technology, and they have a number of ways to do it. Some have developed new pedagogies around it. So they'll have the students go in and vote on the questions that they would like to see discussed in class. And then those kind of elevate up as part of the conversation. We have other courses where the TAs who teach the recitations actually sit in the classroom with laptops up and engage in a rapid-fire question and answer with the students. And at the same time, the professor doesn't have to answer all of the questions. The students hop in there and answer many of the questions themselves. So we see it happen a number of different ways. And we also see scenarios where, where there's a really solid question that's asked in the back channel, and then the TA will kick it up to the professor so he can address it for the entire class.
That's great. So clearly, I mean, there's definitely a burden with 150 questions, but it's great to see that there are folks figuring out that there are definitely ways to tackle that and make it work. I just think if you can make it work, that's just amazing, because it goes back to the same thing I talk about FormSpring as far as an admissions issue goes. I always say when institutions use FormSpring, which is a Q&A site, I say, if you're not using FormSpring, you're probably not answering the questions that are out there. It's not like you're taking the questions from somewhere else and answering them. And here's another example that if a professor was answering 5 questions and now he's answering 150, that's 145 questions that weren't being asked. And it doesn't mean those questions didn't exist. They just weren't being asked. So it's pretty awesome that you guys have found a way to dig in and get these questions out, get them answered. I think it really sounds like a win-win for students. But that, again, is not all you guys have been doing. So tell me about Mixable. That's another one that you guys have going on.
Sure. Mixable is a tool we launched last fall. And the intent there was to provide a new collaborative environment for students that took advantage of the tools they were already using. So think of it somewhat like an LMS that lives inside of Facebook. So what we do is we had some focus groups with students, and what we wanted to do was figure out, what tools were they using? Students are a lot like the toys from Toy Story. They just spring to life when you're not watching. And so what we wanted to do was find out, okay, what tools were they using when we weren't watching? What are they using to enable their own education? And we learned a ton from them in terms of what technologies they were using, but then we also learned about what challenges they had in terms of using those tools. So, and one of the predominant ones was Facebook, right? Facebook was huge. Students, it's no secret that students use Facebook. They use it a lot. They use it more than they watch television. But in reality, we don't know half of it, right? It's a major part of their lives. It's fundamental to them. It's a fundamental part of life. There's Earth, Wind, and Facebook, right? It's huge. And so what we wanted to do is kind of take advantage of that environment because they're already using it as part of their own learning, but there were certain challenges that came with that. For example, how do I know that this person in my class that's trying to friend me on Facebook is actually the person that's in my class? These kinds of things. Or how do I find all the people that are in my classes on Facebook? Or you know what? I don't want a whole other tool that I have to use. I just want to engage inside of Facebook or additionally with my mobile device. And so that's where we developed Mixable, as a way to enable that kind of collaboration amongst students. And I think there are two, unique parts to Mixable. One is that the conversation is not owned by the instructor. So students can choose to use Mixable, have a course-fed conversation, and the instructor doesn't necessarily even have to be a part of it. Or if they are, they have no more access to that conversation as anyone else.
Wow, that's awesome. So can you dig a little bit deeper into that it seems like a pretty broad, huge application. Can you just dig a little deeper and give me a couple more examples on how this is actually utilized?
Sure. So like Hotseat, we have it used this semester. I think we're talking about 20 courses, 16 faculty, somewhere around 1,300 total enrollment in our pilot, give or take. And so we're seeing it used a lot of different ways. We're seeing it where faculty spool students off into breakout groups. We're seeing faculty who use it for all of their course conversations. We've seen faculty who use it to build out libraries of help material for their students as they find links and documents that are helpful. And that speaks to one of the other unique things that with Mixable is that it doesn't seek to own content of its own. So, for example, in most collaborative tools, most LMSs, as you know, if you upload a document, for example, the environment takes ownership of that document. What Mixable does that's different is that it aggregates material that's coming from other places, and so we create a partnership with a company called Dropbox that provides a cloud-based storage service. So all files inside of Mixable are shared via your own Dropbox account. So when the day comes that you've graduated from the institution or you've walked away from that class, you still have access to all of the files that you shared, in addition to any of the files that were shared with you that you wanted to keep. It also takes advantage of Facebook as a posting environment. Also, the same thing with Twitter. We have some classes that use Twitter for their own Q&A, so it can kind of syndicate that content. And it also has like soft connections with YouTube, Vimeo, these types of environments as well. So that's one of the key pieces, is that it doesn't necessarily it doesn't replicate existing functionality that may already be out there.
That's awesome. I gotta say, I love the Dropbox example. Everybody watches the show probably knows I love Dropbox. I mean, honestly, who doesn't love Dropbox at this point? If you have a USB stick, get rid of it, guys. Dropbox is the way to go. But I love that you guys aren't trying to own any of the information, that you're, one, utilizing the tools that people already use. Every student that I know uses Dropbox, uses Gmail. They're using, they're utilizing these things already, so you're not asking them to use something they haven't used before, and you're giving them an easy out. I really do love that, again, that you don't own the information at the end. They can take their Dropbox stuff and they can walk away, and I just think again, it goes to just a really interesting thing, that you're utilizing what they're already using. It just, why reinvent the wheel when you don't have to? And I think that's a really good point.
We've also extended that to their Facebook friends. So Mixable doesn't have any notion of friends or buddies or anything like that. It builds on the friends that you already have inside of Facebook. And one of the things that we can do is, if you choose to connect it with your Facebook account, of course, because we have a number of different privacy settings, is that that we can identify people in your classes that you're not Facebook friends with, and based on their contribution to the course, maybe you want to be. And we can provide that kind of information to the student. Let them make the decisions on their own.
Very cool. Now, we have a couple questions coming in that are specifically in regards to policies and stuff like that with the institution. I want to get into all that and hear about the administrative side, because that's what we're going to be wondering about when we decide, hey, can we implement this on our campus? And just before we dive into that, can you just tell me about one more application that I think is really great? Guys, if you Studio by Purdue, there's more out there. We'll send a link out. Nate, my man Nate, who's my production assistant. Nate, grab a link for Studio by Purdue, tweet it out so folks can check out everything they have going on. But in the meantime, can you just tell me about DoubleTake, and then we're going to dive right into some hard-hitting questions.
Sure. So DoubleTake is the latest technology we developed. It came out last November. We've expanded our pilot this spring. The initial users are in American Sign Language and criminal forensics and some science seminar courses. The idea behind DoubleTake is to enable video capture redelivery from mobile devices. So if you think of, for example, American Sign Language, there's absolutely no possible way to do a written assignment in American Sign Language. So what we do is we make it possible so the students can capture their video and they can upload and submit those videos as part of assignments. Those videos can then be evaluated by their classmates, these kinds of things. And then the other part of it is that can all happen through a web browser, or they can do that all from their mobile device. And we have an iPhone application as well, and so we also enable that kind of quick sharing. So imagine the scenario where students are sitting in their biology lab. They're seeing a demonstration unfold in front of them that they're going to have to repeat in a few minutes. They're jotting down their notes, remembering important parts. Well, if they have their phone on them, they can actually just capture that demonstration, and then using DoubleTake, once captured and coded, it'll stream back out, and for a couple of minute video, that'll be redelivered within a 5 to 7 minute period.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I just gotta say, that's awesome. I kick it over especially when we talk about sign language classes or things like that. You're talking about utilizing technology not to fix something that's already been fixed better, but to literally revolutionize the way something can be done. I mean, it does go back to when you talk about when Apple's FaceTime first came out. Like, yeah, it's cool to Skype with people, but it's amazing now that people that are hearing impaired can actually have a conversation over a mobile phone. And it's just, these are the kind of revolutions where you got to stop and realize that, this technology can make a huge, huge difference in people's lives. And I just think that's really interesting. So I'm so excited. Joe's had a great comment here saying, I'm impressed with the apps, but I'm more impressed with the mentality of embracing new technologies. That's amazing. I completely agree. In fact, I'm going to retweet that right now. That's gold. It's just, so I want to get into that for a little bit. I want to talk about the mentality at Purdue because, the apps are clearly impressive, but we all work in higher ed. So what's more impressive is that you guys have been able to do this and that you guys have tackled this big question and it's happened. So, from the get-go, what sort of policies are restricting you guys? Are there any formal policies? Has this been something that was very informal going forward? And also, what was the role of IT? Like, who were the people involved? Who were the strategic stakeholders as far as on an internal higher ed level?
Sure. So the easiest one of those to answer is what was the role of IT? I actually worked for Central IT, and Central IT was a big driver behind all of these projects. And so really, for each one, there's a special set of policy and circumstances that have to be evaluated. Mixable is one of those, and part of the reason we created Mixable was to help alleviate some of those concerns with using FERPA-related data with open tools. And so how we address that with Mixable is that we inform the student as to what we're going to do with their information, and then we let them decide. If you want to connect and let other people know you're in the class, great. If you don't want to, that's okay too. You can still consume every piece of content that's coming through that stream. So we've come up with a number of different creative ways, but really it's focused on giving that student control and letting them make informed decisions about how they want to use the technology. And then from the faculty member side, using open tools, it's an extreme sport for them. Really, it's something that they can't really control as a faculty member. It's something that engages a counterculture, and so it's a huge leap of faith when they want to implement this technology in their classroom. And typically, that's why you see one or two faculty members implementing kind of new technology. But the reason what we can do is expand that number by providing a tool that helps kind of bridge that divide for them, so that they don't have to understand every nuance of Twitter in order to have a back channel in their classroom.
Mm-hmm. Very, very cool. And that's a huge thing. That if you can bridge that will really increase your buy-in for sure. Talk to me a little bit about platforms. You mentioned iPhone applications. What is your approach to that? I mean, is your concern that what if a student has a droid or a pre? What are you guys thinking with platforms?
Sure. So a lot of what we look at is what do the students actually have? We have our surveys, we have usage data, these kinds of things. And like I said, our ethos really is run what you brung. So we want to try and enable that technology however we can. And so the case of Hotseat, virtually every student has a cell phone and an SMS plan. And so with Hotseat, at the very least, they can text message their questions in during the class period. So in that way, we provide them a means. We have to look at the technology in terms of what it does. In terms of DoubleTake, to provide that functionality on an iPhone, it actually required an iPhone application to make that possible. On Android and Palm and BlackBerry, it uses a mobile web app because that would enable that kind of technology from there. So really we look at, if the mobile web app will provide that functionality, it reaches the most devices, then that's something that we start with. But the other part of it is like, we're looking at, we're making an initial investment here in a technology. And so what we're trying to do is, implement the technology, see what the feedback is, see where it's going. And if it doesn't work out, then, we're more than willing to walk away from it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you develop this technology and you hold on to it forever. You treat it like it's one of your children, and I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think you have to look at them like goldfish, right? You're glad to have the company, but when the time comes, we can send it down the tubes if we need to.
That is an awesome analogy. I absolutely love it. That's a really good point. It really is. And I love, though, that you guys aren't just leaping out there, that you're talking about, using surveys, getting data first, making an educated guess. This stuff is still evolving. Making the educated guess and assumption of what can you do to change the space and benefit the space, and then you're evaluating, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, like you said, I guess bye-bye goldfish. I don't know.
That's right.
So we had a question coming in that said, really interesting, is Mixable, things like this, available to any other schools? And this brings up a big loaded question, which is, if you guys are programming this, is your goal to always keep this exclusively in-house? I mean, I'm not going to lie. It seems like you guys could sell this and make some money if you open it up to other schools, but I don't know what your approach is as an institution to that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So we take a number of different approaches. We have another technology we've not really talked about today called Signals that it's a predictor of student success, and that's a technology that we license through a partner through SunGard. So you can now purchase it under the brand name Course Signals through SunGard. So that's one particular scenario. Hotseat is an application. The complete source of that can be purchased and implemented on your own campus. Mixable and DoubleTake, we're currently looking for partners to help make those available. I mean, really, we would love to see this technology made more broadly available. And at the same time, everybody's budgets are tight, and if IT can become a revenue generator for the institution, then we're that much better off, and then we can take that money and then reinvest it in other new tools.
And as you're talking about revenue and budgets and stuff, is there any ballpark on how much money, time, manpower you guys have invested thus far into Studio by Purdue? I mean, is this folks' full-time jobs, or is this something that like is a side project that a number of people are working on? What's the labor side of it?
Sure. So that's kind of a nuanced answer. It started out as a Hotseat was developed as a side project, as a way to see, could we develop teaching and learning technology? We were a traditional web development group that exists on most campuses. We saw a lot of unbroken ground in terms of learning technologies, and so we thought, what, we can make a difference here, and maybe try something new, and it worked out. And so now, that then brought on additional investment from the institution, because they say, we can help students be more successful through implementing new technology. And so that's where, so in terms of the team, it's hard to say. We don't have, I have a group of 11 developers, but at the same time, they're not dedicated. I'd say 2/3 of our time goes through other, what I would describe as commodity services, content management, web design development, these kinds of things. So studio projects make up around 1/3, give or take, of our operation. And so really at any given time, it's about 2 employees focused on a project.
Very, very cool. So I want to open up for a quick second about a very broad topic, which is why you guys have chosen to program at all. We've had discussions, folks out there watching, you guys have seen other episodes in Higher Ed Life. We've had a couple of conversations where folks say, higher ed IT folks are not programmers. Don't program. That's not what our job should be. And you guys are very much doing that. And I mean, I have an opinion on why, and I'll share it, but I want to hear your thoughts too. I mean, I just think that folks that have made that argument, very valid in some instances, especially when higher ed programs to reinvent the wheel. When there's alternatives out there and higher ed's chosen, I'm not going to go ahead and do that. We want to code this in-house for ourselves. But what you guys are doing is you're doing something that's not really been done before. And I think that it's every higher ed institution's responsibility to innovate in the field of education, not just with technology, but in general, to always grow and always look at how we can do what we do better. And it looks to me like you guys have done that. And programming does sometimes, it's called for sometimes. So walk me through that, because you said you've seen the show. Some folks have come on here and said higher ed should not be programming. And here you guys are doing it, and from what I'm seeing, doing a really good job with it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so a big part of this has to deal with your institutional culture. And so, Purdue, we're a research institution, and so, the creation of new technology is very much a part of our research mandate. And many of these tools actually fit within faculty members' research mandates as well. And so, many institutions have been developing software for years. On the research side, it's created billion-dollar industries. Things like Mosaic, which was the first web browser, or Apache, both spun out of higher education. Those are two, kind of popular examples of software being developed here. So it's actually very much a part of a research mission to create and develop, deliver this software. Then the other part of it is that we have a commitment to help our students be successful. And so if we can develop new technology that makes that happen, then it makes sense to do that. It's a good investment by us to develop that technology. And so that's where we really look at, what are the benefits of that? What are the ROIs? And that's why metrics are a key piece of that. So as we develop new technology, we're constantly implementing research and looking at what are the outcomes of this? How does it correlate with learning outcomes? How does it correlate with course outcomes? Are students being successful? Is the needle being moved as a result of this technology?
Very, very cool. I can't agree more. I think especially when you are talking about results-based, that you're not just building something to build it, but this is something that is literally core to your mission. It's helping you provide your students with the best possible opportunity for an education and for growth, and I think that is something that we all should be held to do that. So my question is, for folks watching, do you think realistically Studio by Purdue or something similar is the kind of thing that could work on other campuses as well? I mean, do you think it's something that other higher ed professionals could have a meeting or make a phone call or ask somebody and get the ball rolling on possibly trying to enter this space? Do you think it's something that's replicable on other campuses?
Yes, I certainly hope so. I would love to see more institutions kind of engaging in this kind of development. It's exciting, especially right now, in terms of the evolution, especially in mobile technology, because we have, in many ways, achieved science fiction, right? Let me give you an example. The iPad 2 just came out, right? Exciting innovation, a year after the original. But you know what? Science fiction predicted the iPad years ago. If you watch Star Trek The Next Generation, Captain Picard had an iPad, right? In the Star Trek universe, they had not found the cure for male baldness, but tablets were technology that they had cracked, right? So we've seen this, and we're seeing this technology evolving very quickly. We can get in front of this. And in higher education, we have the opportunity to move quickly to get in front of kind of as the technology is evolving and begin to deliver this technology faster than what software vendors would typically see. We've seen a few startups here in the last couple of years really starting to innovate these kinds of things, which is really exciting to see. But then at the same time, we can see higher education do it as well. So I would love to see this kind of technology development going on in other institutions, and in some cases it does. I shouldn't indicate that that nobody else is doing that kind of development.
Very true, and I'm not trying to do that either by any means. There are other folks doing some cool stuff. I just think there's a lot that could take some real good lessons from what you guys have done, and maybe hopefully take it and run with it a little bit. Now there's a bunch of questions coming in on Twitter asking about faculty. If you can dive in a little bit more about what has the faculty buy-in been? What is the relationship? What's the role faculty are playing? And I mean, right now, are you hitting a few tech-savvy faculty, or is this something where you do have more of a wide reach and wide buy-in at this point?
Sure. So we have a really good strategy on that. So if you think about your technology adoption curve, right, you got your early adopters and your laggers on the other end. What we target are the ones that sit in the middle, right? So if this was an election, these would be the swing voters. We typically don't look for the early adopters because, amongst their faculty colleagues, they're seen as early adopters. And so Joe's starting that new thing. He's always trying new stuff. We don't know which way it's going to go. And so what we look for are the ones in the middle, the ones that are truly looking for value. And so with those first faculty that we got to use Hotseat, we found them because they were banning technology use in their lectures. They wanted to get rid of the laptops, get rid of the phones, all of it gone. It was a distraction. They didn't want it. We said, well, you know what? What if we gave value to that technology? What if you could do something with it that would actually aid, the classroom experience? And they're like, sure, we'll give anything a try. And let me say, they were very skeptical about the technology. But you know what? Once you get it working to them, then they're buying it in, and then they're getting their other faculty to use it. And so many times that's what we're looking in terms of the faculty working with us are the ones that there's a specific challenge or a specific thing that they're trying to accomplish within their classroom. We look for common threads amongst them, and then that's what many times forms our tools. And really, the key there in terms of the technology development is we're looking for things to be simple, right? Just as easy and simple as can be. I always equate it to escalators, right? Escalators can never break down. They can only become stairs, right? Even when they're not working, they still work. And so that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. Not a pile of features, not a pile of buttons, but how can we enable a certain kind of interaction, solve a very specific problem?
Yeah, awesome. By the way, I absolutely love the escalator stairs reference. Very, very good. It's a really good point, and I got to say, I give you guys a lot of credit for going after those faculty. I think having worked directly with faculty, extensively, I'll say that while there definitely is skepticism with a lot of technology, the truth is the faculty that I've spoken with deeply care about teaching and learning and their students. And let's be honest, a lot of them could be doing other things in the private sector if they wanted to, and they're not. And so if you approach it from that angle and just ask them to test run it, it's a good point. If you can prove that what you're doing is actually enhancing a student's ability to learn and obtain information and critically analyze it, if you can prove that that's happening to them, you're right, you'll get buy-in then. So maybe it is more just a thought of approaching, getting the middle of the pack. You're right, not the early adopter, whoever's going to say, oh yeah, that guy always is out there testing things. Get somebody in the middle and just say, listen, this will benefit your students, try it, and we'll see whether or not it does. I think it's a really good approach. It really is. So my question now to you is, as we're wrapping up the show, what's next? Both as far as technical, as far as native apps versus actual web apps versus HTML5, and what's coming down the line for Studio Purdue? What's the future? I want to know if you guys are already ahead of the pack, but where are you guys going next?
Sure. So we've seen with Mixable, we're seeing an adoption in terms of the classroom adoption that's going much faster than what we had anticipated in terms of a pilot. And so we're going to be making additional investment there to continue to build that out. We'll start providing iPhone and Android native apps. Those are the two most predominant platforms that we see amongst our students. That's why we have those two particular ones. And then, in terms of new technologies we're working on right now, we're looking at new technologies to enable supplemental instruction on campus. So how do we help those kids outside of the classroom, not so much within a class construct like their specific section, of course, but in a broader sense. We're also looking at augmented reality in terms of how can we provide three-dimensional data within laboratory settings, these kinds of things delivered to mobile devices. And then the other one is location-based data and introducing that as part of a student support model. So how can we drive interaction amongst student to student help as part of a location-based environment, and really again focus very much on teaching and learning as part of that. And then the other part, I guess there are two side parts that are always kind of there. One is learning analytics. So if you're not familiar with learning analytics, it works a lot like counting cards in blackjack. You watch what cards are being played, and with the hopes of predicting the overall success of the deck. And so, how do we take advantage of our apps so that by the second, third, fourth week of class, we can predict if a student's going to be successful in that class or not. And then the other one is personalized instruction. So how can we re-provide help information to students based on what their particular needs are?
Wow. Okay, so it's clear the future's going to be busy, is I think your answer.
Yeah, we'll skip lunch. We'll knock it out.
Yeah, wow, that is a lot of stuff going on. I am deeply impressed with all the work you guys have going on, and it's just been so interesting hearing about it. So, guys, if you have any last-minute questions, get them in. Otherwise, this is going to be the little 2-minute warning. I just got to say, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think it's really important for folks to realize my hopeful takeaway from the show today is just that our responsibility is as educators. Even if we're administrators, whether we're IT like you are or marketing like I am, we're all in some way trying to support the actual education of our students. And here's just a prime example where you're finding that here's a problem and we can solve it. It's that simple. Students have questions, they're not getting answered, they're not asking them. Okay, let's put something together. Hotseat, boom. Students can ask questions and get answers. And it just seems really exciting to me. And it's just an interesting dialogue that I hope is happening on more campuses and needs to be happening more often. I also one takeaway I really want folks to know is that it can be done. I know that when we look sometimes at these huge tasks, like how can we design this huge application that's going to tackle a problem and get buy-in from administration and from faculty, it's clearly difficult. But my hope today is that you take away what I'm taking away, which is it can be done. And that if it's going to benefit the students, and it's remotely realistic, you can make it happen. And it's clear that that's what you guys have done at Purdue, that you've tackled a problem, you're tackling a lot of problems, and you're using new technology in a way that I think a lot of startups should take note of. This is a great example where I think higher ed is on the ground that, we can sit on our hands all we want and wait for, we can, wait for the tech community, wait for Silicon Valley to tell us how to teach our students with technology. We can do that, but that's not the right way to go. The right way to go is because we're the ones that are on the ground. We know what works. And to do it ourselves, and to work with them. I think it's great that you guys are utilizing things like Dropbox. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel again and make your own Dropbox, but to find that bridge, bring them together, and then work on behalf of the students. I love it, and for that, Kyle, I say thank you so much for coming on the show today. Do you have any last-minute thoughts you want to leave people with?
Thank you very much, Seth. It's been a lot of fun. The only thing I'd say is, budget reduction is very much a reality. We're dealing with it ourselves. We've got a $10 million IT reduction over the next 2 years. And so, we have to deal with these things too. But I don't think that the answer is in entrenchment or trying to kind of hide underneath the radar. I think the answer is to advance, to move on that technology, to really strike at the university's core mission. And that's key. And that's where you look at companies like Google, for example. They do thousands of projects that experiment with their company's core business. And I think in higher education, we can do the same thing. And the last thing I'd say is stop asking permission. If you're waiting for the institution to kind of point in a direction and say, oh, yeah, we need to be doing more mobile development, or we need to be doing, engaging our students better, it's never going to come. They turn, like I said, they turn like cruise ships. You have to move quickly into those areas. And I would encourage everyone to kind of think that way. Now, of course, don't do anything crazy, anything along those lines. But, if it impacts your institution's core mission in a positive way, then it benefits everyone.
I cannot agree more, and that's the final takeaway, guys. I have, for a long time, been arguing that we need to be more mission-focused in higher education. Here's a prime example. Sometimes do without asking permission, but whatever you do, if you are truly, truly hitting the core of your institution's mission, one way or another, you're in the right, and that's what matters. And that's really, so go read your institution's missions. I've done it. I have it printed out, and work off of that, because that's why we're all here. And I just think, again, this is an awesome example. So, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And for you guys watching at home, don't forget, guys, we got a big show coming up next week. If you work in marketing, PR, communications, anything you want to know, Chronicle of Higher Education's Josh Keller's coming on. A friend of mine is going to be talking about, he's the West Coast contributor. He covers tech. He's talking all about how to get your institution in the news when you want to be, out of the news when you don't, how to build better relationships with reporters. I mean, this is an action-packed Q&A session. If you work remotely close to anything marketing PR, you're going to want to tune in. This is the first time he's done anything like this. He's doing it with Higher Ed Live. We are very excited about it. So, guys, make sure to keep an eye on that. Go to higheredlive.com. We got an email newsletter. We got 2 shows going on. We might be expanding soon. We're working. We're hustling. Higheredlive.com's got all your information. And I'll see you guys next week. Take care.